News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
KBNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. A 40-year-old Paradise man with a lengthy criminal history has been sent to prison after being convicted again for drug possession. Brady Marion Young was ordered to serve 0 to 5 years after asking the court for another chance. Young was sentenced Monday morning in First District Court. He previously accepted a plea deal pleading guilty to possession or use of a controlled substance, a third-degree felony. Court records show Young's criminal history includes more than 26 criminal cases. The charges range from thefts, burglary, child abuse, and drug distribution. Young was arrested most recently in June by agents with the Cash-Rich Drug Task Force. They located him and 3 other parolees inside an apartment along with a large quantity of methamphetamine, heroin, and marijuana. The drugs were portioned out into multiple small baggies like they were for distribution. In August 2020, Young was arrested for breaking into a storage shed in Logan. In April 2018, Young tried to run from police officers and barricaded himself inside an apartment. He refused to comply with law enforcement until they threatened to send in a canine. During Monday's sentencing, Young's public defender said his client was ready to change his life after decades of drug use. He also provided several letters from the defendant's family. Young asked the court to give him another opportunity to seek drug treatment at an inpatient center. Judge Spencer Walsh refused to give Young another chance and said the defendant had not taken advantage of the programs given to him previously. He sentenced him to the maximum prison term for the crime he was convicted of. The exact length of time Young serves will now be up to the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole. KBNU News Time is 4:07. KBNU weather for tonight. Snow likely this evening. Chance of snow after midnight. Accumulation around 1 inch, low around 20, and then partly sunny, cold tomorrow, high temperature in the lower 30s. Right now with light snow, it's 35 at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Don't spend 20 to 30 hours or more at a dry cleaner when for just a few bucks, Mount Logan Laundry can tackle those extra large loads with ease. Located at 5th East, 9th North in Logan, 1st East, and 7th South in Brigham City.
We might all agree that a vacation to Vegas is good, but Hawaii is better. Same thing when you're building. Wood is good, but metal is better. If you're considering a new building for your farm or business, let Northern Steel Building show you the benefits of metal. Metal is stronger with little or no maintenance, and it doesn't burn. Find out how affordable a metal building really is by visiting northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com or call 435-677-7300.
KBNU News Time is 4:08. Cache Valley native and former education advisor to former Governor Gary Herbert, Tammy Pfeiffer, returned to KBNU's For the People program last week. She is a member of the team behind the Dignity Index, an 8-week pilot program with a ranking system on a dignity scale. The goal being to raise awareness on how people talk to each other, specifically politically. Pfeiffer said one of the things they wanted to do with this is to start a conversation.
And I think we've done that. I think we've started a conversation. And when you see, people that really latch onto it, that are really motivated and touched by it, and when you see people that are defensive about it and skeptical, it's all good. We've started a conversation.
And Pfeiffer said their goal is to take that conversation to the next level where they get people thinking.
The incidents that are in the news right now with Nancy Pelosi's husband really highlights the need for us to watch our language.
Sure.
Because it's that language of violence and demeaning and belittling, and we're better than those people. One of the points on the dignity scale, it's like when you get down into the contempt side 3 and 2, at 2, it's those people are evil and a danger to everything we value. They're going to ruin us if we let them. It's us or them.
She said she thinks people simply do not realize the extent to which language can lead to these violent acts. Pfeiffer will be a guest this afternoon. She will be back on KBNU's For the People program next hour to talk about how things fared during the election as far as rhetoric is concerned. And, of course, you can get all the election results at our website, CacheValleyDaily.com. I'm Bill Walter, KBNU News.
The station for news and talk. KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
We're talking with Gene Needham while he's in Antwerp, Belgium. Gene, what is it you do there?
Today, I'm hand-selecting beautifully cut diamonds to bring back to Logan. In fact, I'm going through a huge selection of diamonds and looking for the most favorable combinations of the cut, color, and clarity, thus looking for the best price. Also, one of the great advantages is actually sorting diamonds, looking for the finest cut diamonds in terms of sparkle.
So why is that so important?
Well, it's because the quality of a diamond's cut unlocks its hidden beauty. It's the refractivity and the reflection of light that makes a diamond look beautiful. This is what we see as we see a beautifully cut diamond. Therefore, we're looking for the best quality of diamonds, and cut is everything. A nicely cut diamond will be noticed from across the room.
Thanks for checking in, Gene. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock. What are customers saying about Top Job Asphalt?
Professional, prompt, courteous.
Knowledgeable and easy to work with. My job was performed with minimal impact to our daily lives.
Very fast and efficient, as well as a great price.
Looks good and lasts.
We started to do it ourselves and quickly realized that it's much cheaper to hire Top Job.
Anything Top Job could have done better?
Nothing. I was pleased with the work.
Totally satisfied.
Feed my horses?
Well, you could ask. Call Top Job Asphalt for your asphalt maintenance needs. 764-0451.
For the People.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KBNU's For the People. Day after Election Day, Wednesday, November 9th. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. And it's nice to be able to say we can take a little bit of a break from candidates and campaigns and elections for a bit. We will kind of rehash what played out last night, which is, to be honest with you, not so much here in Utah, not at all here in Utah, but around the country is still kind of up in the air a bit. Right now, you know, who has the majority in the United States Senate is an unknown and could be for a couple of days more. Oh, worst case scenario, a couple of weeks more if we go into recounts or if things play out in such a way that the runoff that was decided by voters last night. Georgia has an election system that's quite a bit different than ours in almost every other state. The Republican-dominated legislature recently shrunk the window for runoff elections to 4 weeks from 9. So that means that there will be another big election day in Georgia, December 6th. And that is because voters last night did not hand a decisive win to either Reverend Raphael Warnock, the incumbent in this race, a Democrat, and Republican challenger Herschel Walker. Although Warnock technically won, I mean, he had more votes, had a higher percentage, it was not within the margin to avoid a runoff, and so the runoff was automatically triggered, and then 4 weeks for that runoff to play out, and then a second election day in Georgia on December 6th. So depending on what happens in Arizona and Nevada as far as the United States Senate goes, that race could be the deciding race. Right now, Arizona and Nevada are still counting. They have, last I saw, Secretary of State in Nevada was basically saying we've got a couple of days worth of mail-in ballots still to count before the numbers could start to take shape. So Those races have not been called yet for United States Senate races in Nevada and Arizona. Same with the governor's race there in Arizona. So some slow counting. This is the way of things now, and it actually has been for a long time. Outside of wave elections, the elections themselves, if they're coming in close, then it's you have a 50-50 majority situation in the Senate that could be up in the air for a couple of days. And that's basically what happened last night. Right now, Republicans won their House majority. That was expected, but they did not win it by as much as the polling implied. Some of the projections from polling averages were showing them with a 20 to 30 seat majority, which would be a comfortable majority. Where they're at right now is about 12 seat majority. So that is a majority. It does give Republicans control over certain mechanisms of oversight and committee assignments and things like that. But it also puts them in a situation where the caucuses that exist within both parties' majorities. For example, when Democrats are in the majority in the House, they have a centrist wing, a progressive wing, and a conservative Democrat wing. Republicans deal with the same thing. They've got kind of the moderate group of House Republicans, the far right group, they call themselves the Freedom Caucus, and then, of course, the more go back and forth, middle of the road Republicans that can be unreliable for leadership within both parties, these middle-of-the-road Republicans who are, trying to read the tea leaves of their own districts before they cast a vote or support legislation. So it makes it difficult for leadership if the majority is not large to really push through an agenda. So Republicans were kind of handed a mixed bag by voters last night in the House because while they have that majority, they're going to have to find a way to make anything that they try to push through when they kick off the new Congress in January in the majority. They're going to have to make it palatable to the middle of the road and centrist Republicans. And if they do that, then sometimes they lose the far right Freedom Caucus Republicans, at which point they need to start courting Democrats to make things happen and get through the House. So, it's difficult. When it comes to the House, I don't care for the national pundits who will say, obviously voters were sending a message. I've seen a few of these today. Obviously voters were sending a message to Republicans that while we like divided government and traditionally hand the party that's not in the White House control of at least one chamber of commerce in midterm election years. That is tradition in the United States. It's referred to by poll analysts as a fundamental, something that voters traditionally do going back generations. I saw a pundit today writing that they were obviously also telling Republicans, y'all are on watch. We've given you a majority. But the problem with that kind of analysis is it implies that voters in House districts throughout the country were coordinating with each other. And if you've ever, seen and you have, a congressional race in your district, that's not how they play out. As voters here, for example, in first congressional district, were deciding between the Democrat and the Republican last night, which, by the way, Blake Moore won that race very easily with the traditional RD split of about 60-40. It's with, well, actually it was, in this case, about 65-35. Those voters aren't coordinating even with other Utahns and other districts. They're not all getting together in coffee klatches and saying, so how are we all going to vote? What message are we going to send? That's not what happens. People, when it comes to the House districts throughout the country, that's where the federal races get very local, or as local as federal races can get. And the district votes, the way that specific district votes, they're not coordinating throughout the country to send a message to Republicans. So while it might look like voters said, Republicans, here's your majority, that's what we traditionally do in midterm years for the party that's not in the White House, but you're on watch. So we gave you a tiny majority that might not hold together to ram through any kind of agenda or to call a mandate. That's not what happened. What happened is that each and every campaign for each and every candidate in each and every House district campaigned the way they did, and it either won voters over or it didn't. So, again, Republicans do have that majority in the House, but it is a majority that could fall apart on specific issues, especially the more extreme proposals that we've seen, like cutting Social Security, nationwide abortion bans, and things like that. This majority is not going to be able to do that type of thing. But again, to imply that it was a nationwide coordinated effort by voters in each congressional district is just silly. It's just the way it happened. But Republicans do have that majority, and they still have a chance for a majority in the Senate. Again, right now it's coming down to 3 races: Arizona, Nevada, and this runoff in Georgia that will play out December 6th. Democrats have a few more routes to 51 or 50 with the vice president as a tiebreaker than Republicans do. So the odds are in the Democrats' favor at this point to hold on to a Senate majority. But it's still very possible, depending on what happens in Nevada and Arizona and Georgia December 6th, that Republicans can do it. What I mean by routes to victory is Republicans need to sweep the remaining undecided races, and Democrats only need 2 of them. So odds are in Democrats' favor for a 50 or a 51 vote majority in the Senate. So that's basically where things landed nationwide. Here in Utah, there were no surprises. This was things played out pretty much the way they expected, or the way it was expected. One thing that's worth pointing out is that it turns out that the polling in Utah was pretty on. It wasn't exact, which no pollster ever claims to be. But it was pretty close. Senator Mike Lee with a comfortable, larger than I predicted. I said this race, my prediction was Lee would win, but it would be by a margin that should scare a Republican in Utah. And that's basically what still happened. We'll see if this, changes how Lee chooses to conduct himself as a United States Senator or in the next presidential election. That's where he got himself in trouble this time. So it was a win for him, but it was a win that, like I said, most of the congressional races were breaking. Well, Congressional District 4, Representative John Curtis won an 80-20 split. So he walked away with it. Burgess Owens was, I think, like 62-28, so something like that, or 38. And I think that's how it broke down. Anyway, basically all the congressional races here in Utah broke the way you would expect them to, with roughly a 60-40 split, and that's how it almost always plays out. In the United States Senate race, though, it was about, depending on the final count, Senator Mike Lee sitting at about a 12-point win, 12% margin of victory, as opposed to the congressional Republicans' 60-point victories. 60% win in all those congressional races, a 12% margin of error for Senator Mike Lee. That's pretty close in Utah. It's still a win, and it's a decisive win. There will be no recount. Evan McMullen has already conceded. He was very gracious, actually, in his concession, said he spoke with Senator Lee and said, he hopes that Senator Lee will correct course and honor the Constitution in his future decisions. I'm sure Senator Lee did not like hearing that in a concession call, but it's over, and it's decisively over. But again, a 12-point win for a Republican in Utah. I guarantee there are going to be some conversations with Senator Lee and his team back in D.C. about how they, assuming he wants to stay in the Senate, how they navigate, and conduct themselves going forward. So we'll see. But it is decided. And Evan McMullen, you got to give it to the guy for making this competitive. It was always a long shot, but he made it a race. And I think for me, regardless of the outcome, I don't know, I'd like to see more of this in Utah. I'd like to see more races where no one should just, glide into office. I think that's where we get in trouble, and that's where we end up with, even at the state legislative level, unresponsive lawmakers. I think if the races get competitive, then they have to start paying a little more attention to constituents, and they have to start thinking a little bit more about how they conduct themselves and the decisions they make, and even the things they say publicly or privately, which again is how Senator Lee kind of walked himself into trouble with text message conversations that just didn't look good. As far as what was the baggage that held Senator Lee back so much, keeping his win down to a fraction of what the others were walking away with last night, I don't know. The tea leaves will be split over that forever. I know for me personally, his text to White House Chief of Staff asking what should I be saying in regards to attempts to overturn a free and fair election, that's not something you ever want to see your federal elected officials doing. They should not have to ask another person what they should be saying about that. Speaking of that, nationwide, one other thing to note is that something that proved to be a bit toxic last night in races around the country was election denial, as it's being referred to now, or the big lie, some still call it. The idea that the 2020 election was stolen. Candidates who made that their campaign, who ran on that, in swing states especially, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, they were sent a decisive message by voters in those states that they would not be given the levers of power. There were people who claiming the 2020 election was stolen, running for Secretary of State, Attorney General, offices that would literally get to decide how elections were going to play out in the future, and voters told them no. In Senate races, not quite as much. J.D. Vance won, Ted Budd in North Carolina won, and about a dozen legislative races throughout the country where the candidates were basically running on the claim that the false claim that the election was stolen in 2020. They did win, but in these swing states with these prominent Secretary of State and Attorney General positions, voters were a solid no on handing election deniers levers of power. So it was an interesting night, to say the least. I'm excited about this because this is an old school, almost cliche thing to think, but I do like divided government. And depending on how the Senate turns out, the most likely scenario that we're looking at going forward is Democrats with either a 50-50 split and technical majority with the vice president in the Senate, or a 51-seat majority in the Senate. That's referred to as a working majority. It means you have one, but you've got to work it to put it into play. And then Republicans with a small majority in the House. You've basically got everyone is going to have to work really hard to get the agenda through. And the timing, of course, of the midterm is you're doing that headed into a presidential election year. So they're going to have to try to navigate the politics of this at the same time. This is healthy. I think midterm election voters last night, we'll talk a little bit about the demographics that we know so far, at least from the exit polling. Spoiler alert, it looks like young people and women came out in record numbers compared to other midterm years, at least, not presidential years. And it was, voters basically said, everybody get your act together. We need to move forward more productively. I'm, of course, paraphrasing. I doubt anyone actually said those words as they cast their vote, but that is basically the situation that midterm voters put the country in last night. There's a way forward for both parties, but they are going to have to work hard to get any agenda across to the president's desk, regardless of majorities or not. It's going to be interesting and probably a well-timed thing. So, Mitch on the line. Mitch, your thoughts on the midterms?
Yeah, my biggest frustration was just how many unopposed races we had in Utah. Yeah,
very disappointed with the Democrats in that, here in Cache Valley and throughout the state. No excuse for that.
Honestly, and half of those ones I swear were freaking unopposed when they were doing for the primaries.
Yeah,
so
that's
which is even worse because that says bad things even about the Republican Party.
Sure. And I get that, for Democrats, especially in the more conservative areas of the state, they're sacrificial lambs a lot of times. But even that is I think, necessary because if nothing else, it forces a debate or two or a town hall or two, if nothing else. But you had races in Weber County. You had races in, key races for county positions and others throughout the state that where there was not a challenger. And yeah, that's unfortunate, I think. Utah County, for example, Utah County voters, I spoke with some friends down there a little while ago. They were very frustrated in their county clerk choices. They had a kind of an extremist running with no challenger, and someone jumped in to file a write-in campaign because of that. At the last minute, and of course the write-in campaign was not successful, and voters, if you look at the turnout in that race, voters basically protested by not voting that race. That candidate was elected because they had no challenger, but where you had other races coming in with 30, 40,000 votes, that race, 2,000 people voted for that person. Still won because there was no challenger, but only 2,000. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I've always felt like if you race unopposed, you should have to get a certain percentage of people to vote for you anyway, or else nobody gets the job. Leave it empty.
Yeah, that's honestly like that. That's I wish there was some kind of a rule that
vote of no confidence.
Yeah, that we had that option. Yeah, because if and like I say, the Utah Democratic Party really needs to get their act together. I know Utah is still probably a decade or even two from being a purple state. The demographics will take it there eventually. But it's going
to be a decade before we have the chance to try again on our maps.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, on redistricting, that's a pretty big challenge too. And it's just it's unfortunate. There should always be an opposition party, and unfortunately here in Utah, we've got an opposition party, the Democratic Party, that's just kind of been wandering in the weeds for about 4 years now. And it's unfortunate. So, yeah, I'm with you on that, Mitch. I'd like to see more contested races. That's why, Evan McMullen honestly is my hero in this race in this cycle because he made it a race. He lost, and he lost decisively. It wasn't close, but he made it far closer than races ever are in a generation here in Utah, and that's healthy.
The what-if game, but what if all those other races the Democrats had put somebody in there? Would he have gotten more votes then because more Democrats would have turned out?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Honestly, I think that's a very real possibility. I think if you look at turnout in Salt Lake County, it was down quite a bit compared to other counties. And that's usually the reliable Democrats coming out and being excited county. So Democrats obviously were having a hard time finding anything to get excited about on even their local races this year. And I think that's a mistake for the Democratic Party to not have candidates out there with some kind of unified message, even if they're going to lose in the end because it's Utah. It builds the party. It gets people engaged. It reminds people there's an election going on, if nothing else.
If nothing else, let's just make the Republican Party step up.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm kind of tired of some of my Republicans just thinking, oh, I'm a Republican, I'll win. And so they don't have to actually, have a good platform to stand on.
Yeah, honestly, I think there's nothing more unhealthy in a public policy in the United States than an elected official in any state, whether it's red or blue, that feels just by filing for re-election they're going to be back in that seat because it creates hubris. It opens the door to corruption. And unresponsiveness to constituents and voters. It makes parties lazy. There's nothing good about an unchallenged supermajority. And unfortunately, we saw a lot of that play out in Utah. So, yeah, that's a good point, Mitch. And I'm glad.
And I still have to agree with Robin Williams. Politicians should have to wear jackets with all their sponsors' logos on them. Like NASCAR.
Yeah. The sad thing is, Mitch, I'm afraid we're headed there, but not in an ironic, satirical kind of way.
No, and that's the real issue. I mean, how much money did PACs from outside of Utah spend on Mike Lee?
Oh, I mean,
the billions.
It's the price tag is going to be somewhere. It's going to be over $15 million. And most of that from groups outside of Utah, for McMullen too, but most of them were for Lee. And I tell you, I think what they succeeded at, these groups from outside of Utah, is Evan McMullen, before that spending really started towards the end of summer, he had favorability ratings that were far above Senator Lee's in the polling, and that flipped. So that negative campaigning worked. And Senator Lee then could say, look, I'm not saying it. I'm keeping this above the belt, you know.
If he had an ounce of integrity, he would have condemned them.
He was under a lot of pressure to condemn the Club for Growth ad that was really dishonest ad.
Everybody should condemn that. It was a bald-faced lie.
Yeah, that's when you have when the KSL TV is saying we won't run your ad because it's not true. You've crossed the line. You've crossed the line.
You've crossed a really big line.
Yeah. And Club for Growth has a bit of a reputation for that. So, yeah, I would have liked to have seen Lee step up and condemn that ad.
I had my druthers. We ban all super PACs anyway, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. I tell you, the super PAC money, this is going nowhere good. Because that money is not coming from people like you and me. And I'm talking to everyone out there listening. The people funding these super PACs through it's referred to as dark money, a 501c3, basically money laundering scheme, keeps their names off the record books so the super PACs can spend without saying who's paying for it. And in some cases, we've seen over and over, it's one very rich person paying for it. One. And
you should not be able to do a campaign contribution anonymously.
Because they're literally buying elections, and I tell you, that is not going to end anywhere good. And a lot of Democrats I know like to say, well, it's the Republicans, but it was the
both parties do it.
Yeah, it was the Republicans at first, but as soon as that started working for Republicans, Democrats got on board very quickly. Thanks, James. So yeah, it's right now it is possible to. No one's giving to a super PAC and then deciding the outcome of an election. But if someone gives enough to a super PAC anonymously, basically, they can change the election by a point or two. And most House and Senate races come down to that in a lot of states. So yeah, it's that's a dangerous thing that I wish everyone would get more serious about. But unfortunately, we all have this problem. Most of us, at least, we don't care if our party's winning. We don't care who's buying the elections, right? And that's a really unfortunate way for us all to go about this because...
I care more when it is my party, but hey,
yeah,
I want my party cleaned up and to be the ones taking the moral high ground, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Honestly, to fix it, both parties are going to have to decide to do it at the same time. Otherwise...
Someone's going to have to get their hand caught in a cookie jar bad enough to force everyone to have a wake-up call.
And the really sad thing about this, Mitch, too, as a final point on this note, Congress could fix this in a second. Everyone blames Citizen United, the Supreme Court ruling, which is kind of where the floodgates opened. But the Supreme Court was basically saying, you can't restrict this unless Congress spells it out. And then Congress just never did. Regardless,
they never will, because that's where all the money comes from.
Oh, yeah. They just, and it's a perpetual campaign now. It never stops. I guarantee, maybe not today, but by tomorrow, there will be an elected federal official that maybe you even voted for that will be making fundraising calls as early as tomorrow for the next cycle. And that is disgusting. They've got a job to do.
The other one that pisses me off is that I can't opt out of those calls.
Yeah, that's... Well,
I'm sorry, but I don't want anybody texting me or calling me about an election. I know how to do research, and I don't need them trying to influence me.
We need to talk about the selling of cell phone numbers. That's it's coming. There will be I think a public backlash eventually to that because anyone can get your cell phone number from the parties now. And Mitch, appreciate the call. Always great to hear from you. And I appreciate that you pointed that out. Too many uncontested races here in Utah. Utah Democrats, get your act together. Whatever you got to be there. There's got to be an opposition party, even if you're going to lose in the end. You got a job to do, and you're not doing it.
Hard for them to care when the Republican Party won't even show up for a freaking debate.
Yeah, we need to start
chicken little cowards.
The Burgess Owens walking away with that we need to start punishing elected officials for stuff like that. You've got to face your constituents.
There has to be a consequence.
Yeah, it should be a job requirement. It's a job interview, so Mitch, appreciate the call. Always good to hear from you. Others out there, if you want to weigh in on the election results, again, kind of a mixed bag for both parties. And I think that is a really good sign going forward. What do you think? 753-5868. We'll be back right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:39. The news is brought to you by Logan Extermination. After the record-breaking fundraising year of 2021-22, Utah State University announced the launch of the Create Your Aggie Impact campaign. USU Vice President of Advancement Matt White said the campaign reflects USU's excellence as the state's land-grant and space-grant institution. It pairs donors' passions with fundraising goals that promote growth in every area of the university.
This campaign is really going to help inspire others to link their passions with priorities that are going on, to find areas that they feel excited about that the university is going in, and really show the impact towards some very specific and overarching areas of how to move the university to support our students, faculty, programs, and the great work we're doing.
He said the idea is to show what philanthropy can do to move the university forward.
Donors want to get involved in things that they're passionate about. They want to give through an institution to accomplish things for humanity, our society, that create impact on our campus and community and around the world. And we're really seeing our Aggies come together and do that, finding areas that they are excited about advancing and seeing the results of what their investment, their involvement can do.
White said the campaign focuses on 4 priorities that are centered around outcomes that accelerate student access and opportunity, elevate the education experience, develop solutions to world challenges, and build a university of distinction. We'll hear more from Matt White and Craig's interview with him after the news on For the People. Idaho Governor Brad Little has won a second term. The 68-year-old Republican governor on Tuesday easily turned aside challenges from Democrat Stephen Haidt and independent candidate and anti-government activist Ammon Bundy. Little ignored Haidt and Bundy leading up to the election, declining to debate. Little instead focused his attacks on President Biden and made border security and inflation a priority. Little also touted record tax cuts, red tape reduction measures, and big boosts in education spending. If you want all the results from the election last night, just go to CacheValleyDaily.com. KVNU News Time is 4:42.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you could do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, snow likely this evening. Chance of snow after midnight. Colder, accumulation around 1 inch. Overnight low in the lower 20s. Partly sunny, lower 30s for the high tomorrow. Partly cloudy, then mostly sunny on Friday. High around 30. Earlier today, we reached 43. Right now, it's 32 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Mr. Mac. A big selection of suits from slim fit to classic fit, including 2-pant suits and boys suits at 1309 North Main next to Winco. Mr. Mac. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Ted Karen with Edward Jones Investments in Smithfield, bringing you the daily financial market report for Wednesday, November 9th. Markets moved notably lower on Wednesday, giving back some of the gains leading up to midterm elections, and perhaps reflecting uncertainty around election results that have been closer than many expected. Both the House and the Senate look likely to have only minimal party majorities after results are finalized. The drop in equities also comes a day before the closely watched Consumer Price Index inflation report is set to be released. On Wednesday, the Dow was down 646 points to 32,513. The S&P was down 79 and the NASDAQ down 263. Each of those indexes was down about 2%. In bonds, 10-year prices stayed up on Wednesday, with the yield falling to 4.08%. Oil was down nearly 4% to $85 a barrel, and gold was slightly down to $1,708 an ounce. If history is any guide, market performance around midterm elections is fairly consistent. Since 1960, average performance in the 12 months leading up to midterms tends to be volatile, with minimal returns. However, in the 12 months after midterm elections, market returns are usually fairly strong. The S&P 500 is up on average about 16% since 1960 in that situation. Keep in mind that this year the period after midterm elections may coincide with an eventual pause in the Fed rate hiking cycle and perhaps some cooling in inflation trends as well, both of which would be supportive of markets. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and Ted Karen, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice. If you'd like additional information, please visit with any of the 9 Edward Jones advisors in Cache Valley, in Providence, Logan, and Smithfield.
Hi, this is James with White Pine Funerals. We're excited to host our annual holiday concert featuring a choir and musical ensemble by Jay Richards. All are welcome to attend free of charge. We extend a special invitation to anyone who is missing a loved one this holiday season. Food donations are encouraged at the door for the Cache Food Pantry. Back-to-back performances will take place at White Pine on Thursday, December 1st at 7 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. That's Thursday, December 1st at 7 p.m. or 8:30 p.m.
Did you build a new home? Regardless of how clean your builder was, your ducts will have a variety of construction debris in them. Debris like sawdust, flooring pieces, sheetrock dust, and more. You do not want to move into your home with that debris in the ductwork. Call the Duct Hunter and get on the schedule today. Call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Open enrollment for individual health insurance is November 1st through January 15th. Coverage through the marketplace is available with more tax credits. You could save a bunch. If you haven't qualified in the past, try again now. We will help you navigate the marketplace, understand your choices, and complete enrollment. Trying it on your own can be frustrating. Let us help. Call 752-9493. There is no cost to work with us. Having a local agent makes all the difference. Call 752-9493.
Come celebrate a white Christmas with Anderson's Seed and Garden. They are potentially giving away $40,000 in merchandise to the first 50 people who spend $500 or more on holiday and Christmas decor between now and November 24th. If it snows at least 4 inches on Christmas Day and you made a qualifying purchase, your purchase is free. But you only have until November 24th to qualify. Only at Anderson's Seed and Garden. Logan, see store for official rules.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Hear from Mr. Craig Hislop here in just a bit. USU had a record-breaking multi-year fundraising haul, and they've decided to return some of that in the form of what they're calling an Aggie Impact campaign. So, but I didn't mention this. We got a great call from Mitch. We had some other responses from listeners as well, and we talked a lot about the overall result of the midterm elections and what it means for the country going forward. I didn't even mention some of the races here in Cache Valley. As Bill mentioned, they're all available at CacheValleyDaily.com. But no surprises. Well, big surprise. Mark Hurd and Catherine Buse, unopposed, won their elections, 100% of the vote. And both of them still raking in just over 4,000 votes, despite the lack of a challenger. Same for Sandy Goodlander. So there will be 3 new names on, this is Cache County Council Seat 3, Seat Northeast, and Seat Southeast. And so 3 new faces on that council heading into the new year. County Clerk Jess Bradfield and County Attorney John Luthi, both reelected. John Luthi, though, of course, has already moved on. He was appointed by the governor to another position. And so we're still looking to see what the county council, how they decide to navigate that. School board races, Roger Pulsifer beat challenger Melissa Wallace about 70-30. School Board 4, that was 2. School Board 4, Randall Bagley had no challenger. As District 7, Terry Rhodes had no challenger. District 3, for the Logan School Board District, Larry Williams had no challenger. Cole Checketts had no challenger. Kurt Lindley had no challenger, but successful still. With 21,000 votes, guy's popular, even without a challenger, for the Cashwater District at-large seat. And everyone else in that water district as well, Mark Anderson, Brett Randall, and Jonathan Hardman and Bethany Nilsson ran unopposed. And then, of course, we'll skip the judges here. The big news, the race everyone was kind of watching because it got a little fiery there. Turns out that, as everyone predicted, write-in campaigns are a long shot. Cache County Executive David Zook walked away with it, with 65% of the vote to Mark Ensign's 34%. That's about almost 14,000 votes for Zook and 7,100 votes roughly for Ensign, which isn't bad, I'd say, for a write-in campaign. They're a long shot. But it got us all talking about it, and that's good, I guess. And then finally, I'm excited about this, but again, skipping the judges, no offense, judges, but that's a long discussion for another day. But all the judges were retained, for better or worse. RAPS tax renewed, and decisively, 68% to 31. That is 18,000 plus votes to 8,400 votes, roughly. And the open space bond, the big long shot on all of this, it passed by about 9%, so it was closer than the RAPS tax renewal, 54 to 45 roughly, and that's where things are at. Now, these vote totals will change, and the percentages will shift just a bit, but told by Cache County Clerk's office that there are not enough outstanding votes at this point to change any of these outcomes. So they'll keep counting. Certification doesn't happen for 2 weeks, so we'll have final numbers and percentages then, but pretty decisive night here in Cache County. And last thing to announce, sorry, Craig, the constitutional amendment that lawmakers, third time in a row, they wanted us to give them more power, down in flames. Everywhere but Beaver County. I have no idea why. Zero idea to explain this. Beaver County, the only county in the state to give a thumbs up to the legislature's third cycle in a row ask to amend the Constitution to give them more power. We did it twice in a row. That's disappointing. But third time around, thankfully, voters said, nope, you've asked too much. And I'm glad to see that one go down because the legislature is getting a little power hungry, in my opinion, even when it comes to taking power from cities and counties, not just the governor anymore. So decisive defeat for that constitutional amendment proposed by lawmakers, and I'm happy to see that. All right, shifting gears here again, a record-making fundraising year plus for Utah State University, and Craig has the details.
Well, thank you, Jason. Our guest today is Matt White. He is USU Vice President of Advancement, also USU Foundation Board President. The last time we spoke with Matt, he told us about a record-setting fundraising year for 2021-22, and now we're learning that USU has launched the Create Your Aggie Impact campaign. Matt, tell us about this, first of all.
Yes, thank you, Craig, for having me on. I really appreciate to be back. The Create Your Aggie Impact campaign is USU's next big campaign highlighting Aggie Impact and the power of philanthropy and how that really elevates the USU's mission, how it elevates USU students, our faculty, the work we're doing to really achieve something exceptional. Philanthropy is that differentiating factor between good and excellent institutions, and we see this campaign as really helping do that. President Cockett's leadership, her vision, Aggie Action 2028 USU strategic plan that is being launched, this campaign aligns directly with it. In a typical campaign, you might have a silent phase and you might have a $500 million or $1 billion number to it. What we're really trying to do here is show what philanthropy can do and really move the university forward to achieve the strategic plan and the vision of the university at the university level and our college level. So this campaign is really going to help inspire others to link their passions with priorities that are going on, to find areas that they feel excited about that the university is going in, and really show the impact towards some very specific and overarching areas of how to move the university to support our students, faculty, programs, and the great work we're doing.
So it's like you're pairing up interest of donors with fundraising goals that may have already been set up by departments or colleges across the campus, and just trying to put them together.
Yeah, absolutely. We really believe in that, linking donor passion, like I said, with priorities, that donors want to get involved in things that they are passionate about. They want to give through an institution to accomplish things for humanity, our society, that create impact on our campus and community and around the world. And we're really seeing our Aggies come together and do that, finding areas that they are excited about advancing and seeing the results of what their investment, their involvement can do. I said this at the campaign event on Friday night. When Aggies come together, great things happen. My wife and I have been at Utah State. My family moved here 5 years ago, and previous institutions, they talk about family. But that Aggie family, I've never seen or experienced anything like it. Our Logan community, but not just our Logan community, because Utah State University is really the university for the state. We have campuses and extension offices in every county, and that's what this campaign is about, highlighting the work being done by so many people, by our students, our research programs, all that across the state, and how we can really leverage our Aggie network to achieve something just aspirational and exceptional.
The campaign focuses on 4 priorities: accelerate student access and opportunity, elevate the education experience, develop solutions to the world's challenges. The 4th one, tell me about this, building a university of distinction.
Yeah, so when you look at Utah State University and just the many great things under the leadership of President Cockett that we've accomplished over the last couple years, you know, being that land and space grant institution, our work with our Space Dynamics Lab, our R1 research status, being in every corner of the state with our extension programs, our faculty working with communities here in Utah, in our region, and across the world. And when we look about distinction, we can really talk about a couple key areas. And this was really evident because in a campaign, one of the focuses is this is the university's campaign across the state. And we could not do this without the partnership and collaboration and the leadership from so many different people. For example, you know, when you talk about health and wellness, Dean Al Smith from the college at the Emma Eccles-Jones College of Education and Human Services, really highlighting the work being done by the Mind-Body Bridging Institute, the I-System Institute, that really helps students release their baggage and community release their baggage. We were able to announce a major donation by Dr. Stan Block at this event, the Alzheimer's Institute, and the work being done by Dr. Beth Ball. The philanthropy is going to really elevate the work that's being done.
Again, just highlights, I say it over and over on this show, how cool it is Utah State University is in our backyard. Thanks to you, Craig, for that interview. You can read Craig's full story on this new Aggie Impact campaign at cachevalleydaily.com. And, of course, visit the website, usu.edu/impact. Thanks again to Mitch for calling this hour. Coming up on the other side, special guests here on the show to rehash the election in a different way. Tammy Pfeiffer from the Project Unity organization, as we've highlighted here on the show a few times over, they're running an 8-week pilot program here in Utah called the Dignity Index before expanding this nationally. Utah as sort of a guinea pig on how our candidates talk to each other, how our parties talk to each other, how elected officials not up for re-election are talking to each other, and rating it all on a dignity scale. So how did the elections overall play out? We'll hear from Tammy Pfeiffer and the Dignity Index. Diana Thomas of Utah's Insulin for All also joining us to talk about their upcoming big rally in Salt Lake to try and get lawmakers to open their eyes to the lack of insulin access here in Utah. All of that in hour 2 of today's show right after this here on KVNU Logan.
Covering all the news. Stay with 610 AM and 102.1 FM. Breaking news and stimulating talk. KVNU